Hi, my name's Maddie, and this is So Meta.
So Meta.
Hi, my name is Luca. I'm your host here at So Meta today. I'm also a coach and hypnotherapist at LucaMindCoach.com. Maddie is a very, very talented fashion designer from Northeast London, correct?
Yes, Northeast London, yep.
And her philosophy is about sustainability, not just from a fashion point of view, but also from a personal point of view. So I'm really looking forward to talk about that in details later today. Welcome to So Meta, Maddie. It's so good to see you again.
Yeah, it's so great to see you. I'm really happy to be here today.
We met last year during an event called Brighton Sustainable Fashion Week.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first Sustainable Fashion Week in Brighton, and it was exceptional. It got loads of press. A ton of people came to see the shows. Your designs are amazing. You know, I love them.
Thank you.
They are so unique. They're so avant-garde, but they're also made in an amazing way. I mean, they're not just made by hand, but they're also made sustainably. And there's a fusion of all different types of art, which is very impressive, especially for a young designer like you.
Thank you.
Made everything come together so beautifully. I know that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you draw some of your inspiration from a Japanese art form called kintsugi, which is basically an art form where when pottery is broken in Japan, they fix it with gold. And this is to emphasize not just the break, but also to strengthen it. And it's believed that it will raise the value and the beauty of that object. And this is kind of what you do with your fashion designs.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of, the kintsugi is kind of the end product of a kind of journey I went on with design and fashion and just like approaching life in general. So when I've always wanted to study fashion design, since as long as I can remember, and I kind of got on fashion design train as soon as I could. I did textiles for GCSEs and A-levels, and then I did an art foundation where I studied fashion design. And then from there, I went to do a degree at the University of Brighton in fashion design. But I think from as early as my foundation, I realized how unsustainable fashion is. I think it's the second most unsustainable industry in the world after oil and gas. So that's, there's not much competition there for fashion. I know, and I love fashion. So when I heard about how, such a huge negative impact is being caused by an industry that I loved, I knew that I didn't want to practice in that industry unless I was doing it in a sustainable way. And so I think I've always also found kind of Japanese kind of ancient culture and design and art beautiful and inspiring, aside from the kind of kintsugi approach. But especially in my final year, I came across the Japanese approach to kind of life and objects in general, which is called wabi-sabi. And wabi-sabi, it's kind of hard to translate, but the kind of meaning I've taken most from is finding the beauty in the imperfect and seeing the beauty in kind of the impact of nature and the impact of time on objects and pieces. So with kintsugi, the pottery is broken and kind of that's the life cycle of the pottery, but they're kind of seeing that, highlighting that and piecing the piece back together to be used again. So its life is kind of being revived and extended. And that's the approach I took to my final collection and the clothing that I make. So I take discarded textiles that have been thrown away or donated or gifted, and then I piece them together and create them into like beautiful garments that people will view something that had been thrown in the bin as something beautiful and unique and like can last a lifetime kind of thing. So I kind of want to refocus fashion consumers' eyes on the clothing that still exists, still can be beautiful, but it's kind of clogging up the planet and causing harm. So that's kind of my motivation in my design and with that collection.
I love that. Hi, this is Luca from So Meta. I want to talk to you about the paid partner of this episode, BetterHelp. I've been in therapy for most of my life, since I was a child really. The benefits of therapy are so profound and really help us live better lives. That's why I chose to become a therapist myself, to help others. But therapists also go to therapy. And when I need to talk things through with a professional, I choose BetterHelp. When my mum had cancer, I needed to talk to someone to unravel my thoughts, my worries. I was traveling a lot and I spent a lot of my time commuting, or I spent it with her, looking after her, supporting her. That meant I was away from my home, from my friends, from my routine. My life was on hold and I didn't have a support system for myself. That's why BetterHelp was the best choice for me at that time. All I needed was my phone or my laptop and access to the internet. I didn't need to travel to someone's office. I didn't have to scroll through endless directories, and I didn't have to break the bank either. After a short questionnaire, BetterHelp matched me with a credentialed therapist based on my preferences within 48 hours. Which is usually how long it takes to get matched. But if for whatever reason you want to change therapist, you can do so with a click. It's that easy. I love that I could book and manage my appointments based on my schedule. And I could even access group therapy sessions that are organized by topic. BetterHelp made it easier for me to look after myself when I was looking after my mum. If you need support, let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist. Visit betterhelp.com/SoMeta or use the code SoMeta and enjoy a special discount. And now, back to the show. There are some details in your designs that are very exciting, like the golden threads that you almost embroider, but also patch things up with that golden thread to highlight something that was once damaged and then it's made beautiful. It's really stunning. I really do see the connection with the Japanese culture.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
But that's, from what I understand, maybe it's not, but it's also kind of like part of your journey, isn't it? Like most people working in fashion, you had a crazy schedule, very unsustainable from a personal point of view. And eventually you had some health issues because of the very high demands of, creating collection, making things perfect and beautiful, working impossible hours around the clock.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was my first year of uni. I basically was like, right, I'm here, I'm doing fashion uni, I have to do it right, I have to do it perfectly. So I got my first brief, which was a shirt brief. So we all had to design our own white shirt inspired by whatever we wanted. And I remember I would work all day in uni and then I'd come home, I wouldn't eat dinner, I'd sit in my room and I'd just sew until midnight. And I was just like, I have to get it right, I have to get the deadlines right, I have to do this perfectly. And I kind of put everything else on the back burner. And then it got to, I think it was November, December of my first year, and I got tonsillitis. And that developed into quinsy, which this might get a bit TMI, but it's basically when tonsillitis turns into a cyst in your throat. And I couldn't breathe, I couldn't eat. I was basically on death's doorstep. And it was all because of the stress and not eating, not sleeping properly. I ended up in hospital eventually, and I had to kind of leave uni completely. I don't think I even made the deadline or was there for the deadline. And that was kind of a big lesson for me, your health comes first, the way you're feeding your body, sleeping properly, that all comes first, and then that will help you work efficiently. You can't sacrifice one for the other, your body comes first and the work comes later. And I think I also learned, I have, and I still am working on this, I have quite an unhealthy relationship with work, in the fact that I don't know when to switch off, and I always feel like I need to be working. Right now, I'm probably thinking oh, I need to be doing this, I need to be doing that. And I think it's that constant striving for perfection and feeling like I'm not doing enough. And I think what I learned, especially through getting so ill in first year, is perfection doesn't exist. I feel like that's such an unattainable standard to hold yourself to. And if you hold yourself to that standard, you're going to end up getting ill, because it's just, no one's perfect. Nothing is perfect. And I think that's why I loved the wabi-sabi approach so much is because it relates to everything, like finding beauty in the imperfection in everything and kind of seeing beauty in your own imperfections and allowing that is such a healthy way to go about life. And I felt I also saw that reflected in my course and in the fashion industry. Perfection is like what everyone has to work to, and it has to be this standard only, and people break their backs to get there. And I just saw that as such an unhealthy way to live and work. And especially in industry, striving for so much perfection, in doing so is creating so much waste, which is in turn is destroying the planet. That's the only reason we're here. Like, this planet is giving us the breath in our lungs, the bodies that we have to enjoy life. And we're sitting here just like chucking Shein clothes in the oceans and like polluting the entire world. And I just thought there's got to be a different way to approach being alive and working and doing what you love and fashion in general. And I kind of managed to bundle that all up into that one kind of approach, which I put into my collection and my process. And yeah, so it's been a journey.
You know, you're so young, and for someone this young to actually come to that conclusion and execute it so beautifully, it's very quite impressive. You know, I went to fashion school as well, and I was a fashion designer. I worked in the fashion industry for a while, very short while, before I realized I wasn't, that was not my environment. And, you know, like you said, I still sometimes struggle. You know, I know exactly that my body comes first, my health comes first. Perfection doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. It's a concept that people talk about and they expect, but actually it's not achievable. It's almost like chasing a rainbow. You know, you think you're gonna get it, but every time you get close, it's just gonna move further. So it's a nice thought, although, you know, it's really not possible. And we still kill ourselves, literally kill ourselves, especially in the fashion industry, to achieve certain standards. And it's a difficult thing to get out of your system, isn't it? Because you found a way to celebrate the imperfection and to turn something that isn't sustainable into your whole philosophy, make everything sustainable for the planet and for yourself. But yeah, since we start studying fashion, we are taught that we have to work relentlessly. There's no, you know, you put fashion first, you know. There's no eating, there's no sleeping, there's no going out. If there
Yeah.
is going out, it's just so you can show your work or talk about your work. It's networking. So it's really, in a way, unsustainable, but also toxic for our lifestyles. What was your experience? Were you, in a way, pressed and pressured to achieve that perfection, or was it something that came from you?
I think the majority was probably from me. I feel like maybe even just from a young age as humans, especially with social media as well, I feel like there's an expectation to present yourself in a certain way or perform at a certain standard. And I think a lot of it is in my head, and a lot of it is me being like, you're not doing enough. Like, why are you relaxing right now? Like, you should be working, or you're not going to do this, you're not going to do that. And I think a lot of it has been a personal battle of mine to try and be like, right, that voice isn't like, that isn't you. That's a part of you that's trying to kind of protect yourself from failure maybe, and you don't want to kind of do anything wrong and you're scared of that, but actually, like, that's not you. If you don't do that, you're not going to fail. You're not any less of a human. And I think we do kind of I do equate who I am as a person to how successful I am or how well I'm doing. Whereas it's not the case at all. I feel like the key is to just enjoy the journey and celebrate yourself. And a big thing that I've learned is you can't improve without failure. You learn from your failures. The failures are so important. And that's something I learned as well, is just to embrace those failures and do it no matter what. And if you fail, you'll get better from it and you'll learn from it and you'll evolve as a human and creative. And yeah, so it's been a bit of a personal battle.
Failure is so much more important than success, actually, because without failure, you do not know what works and what doesn't. If you're are successful in a way, or everything goes right every time you try something, then you don't know how to get there when you try to replicate it, because you didn't learn how to get there. You just tried it and it's like, oh, it worked fine.
Yeah.
What's success to you?
I think to me, success is happiness, is feeling happy, waking up in the morning and feeling excited to go about your day. I feel like having a good network of people, I've realized, is also so important, because you can be so successful, you can have all of your dreams come true, but if you're waking up by yourself, spending all your time by yourself, you don't really have anyone to share those successes with, then I don't feel like they're as important as they were originally. I think being happy and being surrounded by people who care about you is probably my success. I mean, my dream has always been to do what I love as a career. And I think throughout my childhood, I think my mum was very supportive of that, and my dad was very cautious. He kind of wanted me to feel financially stable. And I think when I said, oh, I want to be a fashion designer, he was like, alarm bells ringing, like this is probably not financial stability, in a career. But I always thought my success isn't lots of money. My success in my head is happiness. And if I don't go for what I love, if I don't, at least try that and fail doing so, then I'm always going to be left asking, like, what would have happened if I'd done it? What would have happened if I'd gone for it? And I think
That's
right
the
now,
worst.
yeah,
That's the worst feeling. What if I did that?
yeah,
Oh my God,
exactly.
so
You're just
bad.
sitting there like, oh, well, I've got this job in accounting, but I kind of wanted to be a fashion designer. I guess I'll never know. So yeah, I'm glad I did it and I went for it, and I'm happy as I feel like I feel successful now because I'm happy doing what I'm doing, and wherever that takes me, I'll be happy doing it. And if I'm not, then I'll switch to
Yeah,
something else that makes me happy. I feel like life is so long. You could just keep doing what your gut is telling you and what makes you happy, and it will figure itself out. Everything will fall into place.
yeah, I completely agree. At what age did you realize you wanted to be a designer?
I think I remember when I was like, I want to say 7 or 8. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you remember these. I don't know if you had these, but they had these little books with like little dolls in it, and you could draw outfits on them. I don't know if you ever saw
Yeah.
them. But I think a friend of mine had a book, and I started doodling in it with her, and her mum came in, and I'm sure she was just being nice, but she was like, wow, Maddie, like that design is amazing. And from then I was like, I'm a designer. I'm a fashion designer. Like, this is me. This is who I'm meant to be. And from then on, whether she was just being nice, whether I was some fashion prodigy, I was like, this is what I want to do. I'm excited about this.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah.
I
So
love
that's
that.
kind of
That's so
how I
cute.
started out. What about you? Because you said you did fashion. When did
Yes,
you know you wanted to do that?
I was fascinated and maybe obsessed with fashion since I was a kid. So fashion is really huge in Italy. I'm Italian
Mm.
and I grew up in Italy. And when it's Fashion Week in Italy, they show the collections at the news.
Hmm.
So I don't think I've ever seen that here in the UK. But
No.
there it's kind of normal. They show football and they show fashion. They at the news, so it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I remember I was mesmerized by these presentations and the models. I think I love models. They are incredible creatures that kind of like in a way act and perform
Hmm.
depending on what the dress is like, what the vibe of the dress is, what the vibe of the collection is. So I was always fascinated with models.
Mm.
And I remember I was very little. I think I was maybe 4, and I was prancing around, showing everybody my model walk. And my parents used to have like dinners all the time. They used to entertain a lot of the time with all of the friends, big dinners.
Hmm.
And my mom was like, "Oh, show my friends how models walk." And I was doing a little runway thing.
Oh my
Um,
God.
yeah, and I was always dressing up. I always loved dressing up as weird as possible. So I would come home from schools and I would get, capes and my mum's makeup, and I would just pretend to be a vampire, or that was my either a vampire or a witch, or something a little bit,
A little bit
of that nature,
spooky.
a bit goth.
Yeah.
And I would just I love like having these capes, and play with the capes. I would spend a lot of my afternoons with my nan, and she was knitting and sewing all afternoon. So I learned to knit and sew when I was very little, and I was making clothes for dolls and Barbies all the time. But I didn't know I wanted to be a fashion designer. I think I really made that choice when I was about 14, because I couldn't stop sketching and drawing. I was like, I knew I had something. I knew I had something because I was often drawing things, and then a season later, I would find the things I sketched before in in shops. I was like, oh, okay. I'm either predicting trends,
Yeah.
or maybe I don't know. Someone stole my designs, but it's not possible. I mean, I was predicting trends without knowing.
Yeah.
And that's what I was really good at fashion school as well. I was good at predicting trends.
Huh?
But yeah, I think I always had it. I think it ran in my family as well. My great uncle something, don't know. He was an award-winning tailor. So
Really?
yeah, and I didn't know that until much later. I was a teenager,
Yeah.
and I still have some of his pieces. And they're
Oh my
beautifully
gosh.
made. Yes, and I actually worn them for many years, especially when I was in fashion school. I used to wear his pieces, and I was very much into Victorian fashion and styles, and I would wear his pieces all the time. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's amazing to have pieces with that much history and family history as well
yeah,
woven within.
yeah,
That's really cool. I mean, that's kind of a part of like what I'm trying to encourage in fashion, which is every piece has a story, every piece has a history, and I feel like that should be treasured and cherished. And it's so like amazing that you've been able to do that for your family and kind of like continue that legacy almost.
it just feels different when you wear something with a story. It's not a feeling that you can describe unless you've tried something with history.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think in a way it's similar when you wear something that has been designed with a specific thought, with a specific process, or it feels very special. It doesn't feel like something you buy from a shop. I don't get much feeling from that. But when I get piece that's been made with love and passion and inspiration, it just feels so special. It's like wearing art and history. So it's beautiful. It's a different feeling altogether. It's not dressing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know that feeling. I feel like, especially since pivoting to sustainable fashion, I've been sourcing a lot of my own clothes, kind of secondhand or vintage or from places like that. And I feel like, I don't know, when you're buying each piece, like as an individual that you found and you've taken the time to find, and you're picking not because it's on like the mannequin or it's, it's trendy. If you're picking because you're like, that's me, that's cool, that's different. I feel like you start to curate your own style and wardrobe in such a way more effective way than if you were just popping down to the shops or you're shopping on Shein or ASOS or something, because that piece is now yours. It's got history, it's got a story, it's unique, and your wardrobe becomes so unique and so you, without you even knowing until you've got this amazing curated kind of collection of clothing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why I love your designs, because it's not just something pretty. A lot of designers make something pretty, and that's really good. It's not like any less than other designers, but with your designs you can tell that there is so much that went into it. There is history, there is a personal journey, everything is curated. It's not just something pretty that you make. It's extremely thought out, and there is a lot of love in it. So it feels very special to wear something like that.
Oh, thank you. That's really nice to hear that it kind of gives that feeling and it brought you that feeling and it tells the story that I put into it. I think especially for my graduate collection, I probably put like too much into it almost. I felt like each look could be its own collection, if that makes sense. I think I had cyanotype printing, and then I had a textile student weaving one of the pieces, and then I made another piece from saddlery leather, so I had to whip out this huge leather machine that I was like hobbled over, like trying, like I felt like I tried every different kind of skill, every different pivot in my collection I could. I put a lot into it, but I
I mean
think
that's very. I think that's very normal for us, for a young designer, because you want to show everything, but you can't make a collection yet. So what you do is that you just put everything in one or two
yeah.
pieces, and it shows enthusiasm to me. Then obviously when you grow and you have a bigger budget and you can make a collection, then you can distribute all the skills, into, different skills into different pieces, and more like mastering your skills. But I think it's very sweet and very cute when young designers just put everything they got in one piece.
Yeah.
And it's just I think everybody does it. So I like watching young designers making their own things, and it's very inspiring to me. Yeah.
Oh
Also
yeah.
nostalgic, because I was definitely there.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it.
Yeah. What was your graduate collection like?
Oh, okay, this is painful. This is painful because at the time my school was in financial trouble.
Okay.
The economic crisis in Italy was going from bad to worse, and that's why eventually I left Italy.
Right.
But we didn't have the money to make a collection. I think we were the first year that didn't have the budget for a collection.
Oh.
So we ended up doing, a presentation, like just the technical drawing side, before actually making any of the garments. A lot of the things we were making were made with paper.
Mm-hmm.
So we did have like miniature scale designs in paper, or big ones in paper, but they weren't really wearable. They weren't clothes.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get to make my own garments, although that was my dream for 5 years. I've dreamt of that
Yeah.
day of presenting my collection, and then in the end it didn't happen. But I was so dramatic back then, and I was always interested in psychology. So what I did, my collection was a psychological journey, which I called Introspective Nightmare.
Wow.
And it was inspired by Alexander McQueen, as in style.
Mm-hmm.
That was, he was my absolute favorite. And it was basically how we turn our inner demons into art. That was the concept of the collection I made.
Ah,
It was really cool. I have to say, it was
that sounds
stunning.
really cool.
I should have made it. I should make it now. I don't know if I have the budget, but
I was
it
gonna
would be really cool.
say, you should
Yeah.
definitely try and make at least one look
Oh God.
from your
Yeah.
original collection. That'll be so
Well,
cool.
they're probably outdated. You know what's crazy? When I made that collection, I was definitely inspired by Alexander McQueen, and a lot of the things, a lot of the inspiration, a lot of the imagery that was coming into my head was happened at night. So one night I basically figured out most of the accessories for my collection. And so I drew something that was very, very similar to the armadillo shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was before the Atlantis collection, where actually the armadillo shoes came out. I have almost the same exact design way before that design came out, and I was inspired by Alexander McQueen. So
That is so
Yeah,
interesting.
it's so interesting. I think sometimes, artists pick up something, like a
Hmm.
signal from their surroundings or the universe or whatever, and sometimes they create very similar things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like, because I remember at uni we had to do a project. I think it was called Creative Director, and you pick a brand, a luxury fashion brand, and then you'd design their next collection as if you were their creative director. And for mine, I think I picked Alexander McQueen too because he is just legendary, like amazing. And mine, I think it was called Undergrowth, and it was kind of inspired by Plato's Atlantis, but it was in a world inspired also by COVID-19 where there was no light. I think there was no light. I think that's it. But I had lots of kind of mushrooms inspired and like I think it was like diamonds and crystals and all kind of things that thrive in the dark and in the
yeah,
undergrowth. And
I
that was the
love that.
inspiration for the collection. And then I think they released their next collection and it was inspired by mushrooms or something. And I was like, I predicted it. I feel like there's definitely something in the air. I feel like you pick up on similar
Yeah,
um, influences or kind of shapes and stuff. So that's really
I
cool.
agree. I agree. There is something that, it's not plagiarism. It's just literally picking up a signal.
Yeah.
And you just become a vessel at some point. You just have to channel whatever information you get from higher power or the universe or the vibes around you and make it into something. And a lot of the time the designs are very similar. So tell me about that journey when you actually got ill, you got tonsillitis, you were physically ill. How did you make that transition? How did you get out of that state and decided, okay, I'll turn these into something sustainable, not just fashion wise, but also for my life and my
Mm,
health? What
I
gave you that
think
strength to make that shift?
I think it was quite lucky because the winter that I got ill from tonsillitis was right before COVID-19 hit. So it was 20, I think it hit in March 2020, and I just kind of recovered in January. So I think I was also kind of forced by the lockdown to slow down as well. So it was kind of a double whammy of the universe being like, slow down, like this is your chance. So I think I was lucky to have the COVID-19 pandemic, and I think for some people it was quite a horrible time. And for me, I was quite lucky. I got to go home, live with my mum and my sister I live in kind of Guildford area, Surrey area, so it's quite beautiful around there. And I got to really tune in and enjoy nature and kind of find a new appreciation for the planet without all of the noise of like, I don't know, you've got to have a job, you've got to do this, you've got to earn money, it was just like, okay, now I can breathe. And I think that was quite helpful in reminding me to just kind of what's important as well. I think you get clouded by all of these things you feel you must do and you forget to enjoy living, just enjoy the days as they come. So I think that really helped me. And it also kind of highlighted the beauty of the planet and how little I wanted to contribute to damaging it and harming it too. So I think that helped me as well. And I think, yeah, I think it's a battle. I still have to remind myself of those things. But what also helped me is I got into yoga and meditation and mindfulness because I got quite anxious. I felt myself getting quite anxious and listening to that voice in my head that's saying work, work, work. And I think forcing myself to stop every day and just breathe and focus on existing and my body and just being in the moment, I think working on that really helps me to refocus on what's important and kind of channel that into my work in a way, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. I can relate to a lot of what you said. The pandemic was really tough on, I think, everybody. I don't think anybody enjoyed it. But in a way, I feel like a sense of guilt because, in a way, it was really good for me.
Mm.
Although it was a scary time,
Mm-hmm.
And it was sad because nobody wants to see so many people dying every day, and so many people suffering. It was a time where I could really slow down myself as well. So I didn't know I was an introvert until the pandemic. I was
Yeah.
I was convinced I was an extrovert until the pandemic, and then I realized, oh, I haven't left the house in 3 weeks, and I love it. I never felt I never felt better.
Yeah.
And it was, for me, it was the right time as well, in a way. We all had our losses during the pandemic, but in a way, it taught me, that when I slow down and I focus on myself, and I leave the world, doing its things, and I don't have to be involved all the time. It really helped me recover and feel better, mentally, physically. I think mentally I was at in my best shape ever during the pandemic, because I realized that I could do, meditation for 2 hours a day. I had nothing else to do. I was studying a lot. I was studying for maybe too long. I was studying for about 10 hours a day,
Wow.
because I was retraining as a therapist during the pandemic. But I didn't have anything else to do, so I actually loved it. I enjoyed it. I took time for myself to do things I wanted to do. I was also struggling with physical health at that time, because I was on crutches on and off for 3 years, and the pandemic actually allowed me to focus on my physical health. So I didn't have to. I could rest. I could be in bed and not walk for many hours a day, which normally, without the pandemic, wouldn't have been possible, really. And so yeah, it was really good in a way. And sometimes I feel guilty for having enjoyed that part, when so many people struggled. But I think there are lessons there to be learned as well. And I think I definitely understood my lesson there. And I think you did the same.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was an awful time. It really was, and we can't take away from that. But I think it also, there was some silver linings in the fact that the human race had to slow down and they had to stop. And I also think I physically saw improvements in the environment as well. I mean, I remember noticing how little, like there were no planes. You couldn't hear a plane in the sky. You couldn't see a plane in the sky. And I think even in those short years, the climate, I don't know if it started to recover, but it definitely petered out a little bit. It seemed to, and I was hoping that as a human race, we could kind of take a step back and slow down, which we never really get the chance to, and kind of realize and reconnect with kind of the environment and each other through the pandemic. And that was, so it kind of, it kind of had some pros to it in some ways, which was nice to see. But I also feel like we might have digressed quite quickly back into what it was before since then.
This podcast is brought to you by LucaMindCoach. As a therapist, I understand that talking therapy isn't everyone's first choice. But I also understand the impact of listening to other people's stories and how these can give us the strength and inspiration to find our own solutions for ourselves. And this is why I started So Meta. And for those of you who want to learn how to manage stress and some relaxation techniques, I created a quick self-paced workshop you can do in your own time. Take advantage of a special 20% discount and really learn how to manage stress for less than $40. Use the code SOMETA20, link in the description box. During the pandemic, I think it happened pretty much everywhere, but I remember a lot of the cities, Brighton as well, the nature, wild nature actually came into the cities, and there were deers and wild animals that we normally don't even see. I didn't even know there were deers in Brighton. I had
Me
no idea.
neither. I had no clue.
And they were coming out and they were coming in the street, and they're like, oh, there's nobody here, I like that.
Yeah, it's great.
Have a little cheeky gander Brighton streets, or
Yeah.
London, in London as well. You know, that was quite amazing. You know, nature's still there. We just don't even realize it is.
Yeah. We just need to step back and let it just kind of thrive a little bit.
Mm-mm.
And I think I don't know, it's so easy to get caught up in life. I feel like you don't stop as a human being. There's always something you've got to be focusing on, something you've got to be working towards. And I think if we all had the opportunity more often to stop and just look around and just think like, I'm here, I'm alive on this planet. Like, what a privilege every human being on this planet has to be here and live their life and breathe air and speak to people and see the beautiful world that we have the pleasure of living on. I think if we all had the time to step back and realize that and remind ourselves of that, we'd all make the most of our lives a little bit more and kind of cherish the good moments instead of always working towards the next goal.
Yeah. I really love how you're not just inspired by old ways and old cultures, but also nature. I love nature. I mean, my home is a jungle, obviously, you can see. I love nature. I couldn't be without nature. I have hundreds of plants. If I could afford to have pets, and I think I will have pets. I think I grew up with pets of all kinds. I've had, you know, chickens, I had ducks, I had rabbits, I had dogs, and all sorts of animals I had. But you know, I can do this with plants, so I always try to bring nature in. And in my art, I'm always inspired by nature as well. So it's nice to see other people doing that as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like one can't exist without the other. Human beings can't exist without nature and the trees that bring us air. And I feel like if we respected it as much as we should, with that in mind, I think we'd all be in a lot better place. So that's kind of what I want to do with my work, is just remind people what's already there, what already exists, what there is to enjoy. We don't always need to be creating and kind of moving away and kind of embracing like technology and just abandoning nature. I feel like that just feels so wrong to me, but that feels like the path that we're taking as society. So it's kind of trying to pull people back, you know, back into the natural, what feels natural to me, a way of existing.
Oh, totally, totally. Okay, so I would like to ask you a series of questions, really quick questions. I would like you to just go with your gut feelings, you know, whatever comes to your mind, just answer. And then if you want to expand on that, feel free.
Okay, go for it. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm ready.
If you could be anything or anyone in the world, what would you be?
Oh my gosh, see, now I'm going to think about it too much. I'd love to just be free of responsibility and live off the land somewhere in the middle of nowhere, have like my own well, my own crops, and just live kind of in a way that's not harming anyone.
So you
Far off in the middle of nowhere. Off grid. That's the short answer, yeah.
Okay, next question. What are you manifesting?
I'm manifesting happiness and community. I feel like I'd love to see people connect more and work together more. I feel like we have so much power as people, and there are so many things that we should be kind of talking about and fighting more and for and encouraging. And I'd like to see that more of a community.
I'm on the same page, 100%. What's your favorite quote, mantra, or affirmation?
I think my favorite quote, I think it is just going to have to be imperfection is beautiful. I think that's going to have to be it, because that's my whole reason for creating and being, and I want to spread that. I want people to remember that being them is enough, and that's all they should strive for, is just to enjoy being themselves and doing what they love, and that is enough.
Yeah, you and I have so much in common.
We need to hang out more. This is what I'm hearing.
What are you inspired by? I know you answered this already, but go on.
I think I'm inspired mainly, I think also, especially right now, inspired by old things, old interesting things. Like I'm in Hastings right now, St Leonard's, and there's this shop called Robert's Rummage, and it's just full of loads of old, like, I don't want to say tat, but for want of a better word, it's just, and I feel like going through and finding old family photos from like the 1800s or tiny little like bottles that people had their perfume in. I just feel like the stories of the past found in these items are quite inspiring to me. And then obviously nature as well is a constant inspiration for me, especially the seaside, which is why I'm in Hastings right now and I miss Brighton so much. But yeah, I think those would be my main inspirations.
Love it. 3 things you can't do without.
Oh my gosh, okay. 3 things I can't do without. Am I gonna bait myself out? This is a really niche one. But you know the show Doctor Who?
Who doesn't? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the biggest Doctor Who fan ever.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I just love the whimsical kind of anything can happen. The universe, like sky's the limit kind of excitement of it. So I'm a huge fan of that. Still watch that, probably too much to that day. So moving on, second and third. I can't live without like animals and dogs. I love having a dog around. We have a puppy right now called Lily, and she is the cutest thing ever. I feel like dogs just brighten up the room. I just can't live without them. And then just people, I guess. Being surrounded by people, especially my boyfriend, he's like my rock. He's like my best friend. So I don't know if I could live without him.
That's so cute. You're such a romantic and a nostalgic. Like it. If you could speak to your child self, what would you say to them today?
I'd say you're doing great. Stick to your gut. Keep being you. Don't let all of the noise and the pressures, the social kind of expectations stop you from being who you are. I feel like it's quite easy to think, oh, I'm not, what people want me to be, I need to change. But I think if you keep living to your gut feelings and to who you want to be, your life will just unfold in front of you how you want it to be. Yeah.
Powerful.
And I'm proud of you. That's what I'd say to my younger self too.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Last time you cried and why?
I think it was probably with a week or so ago. But basically in my final year of uni, actually, in the December before I graduated, my dad passed away. And I think I was crying because I was remembering him. But that was a big challenge for me, a big shock. I almost dropped out of uni at that point because it's kind of one of those things where you're like, how can I keep going? But I did. And I did for him, and I think he'd be really proud of what I did and where I am. But yeah. I was probably just remembering him.
I'm sure he's proud.
I hope so.
I'm sure. What gives you joy?
I think just being outside, being with nature brings me quite a lot of joy. Especially being by the beach, just being able to breathe and just enjoy existing and being out of my head, because I get quite stuck in my head. But then on the other hand, finishing a sewing project or making something, when I have something in my brain and actually bringing that to life, the joy that comes with that is like unmatched.
Yeah, I bet it is. I know it is.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do another game.
Ooh.
So in here, I have some quotes I really like, but I want you to pick one.
Okay.
Right? Ready?
Yeah. Stop.
Okay. This is a quote from Aristotle, and it says, educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all.
That's an interesting one.
I love that. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all.
Yeah, that's a great quote.
Yeah, very good. So we're coming to an end. I would like to ask you, where can people find you, where they can see your designs, where they can get in touch with you? So tell us.
So I have an Instagram. My Instagram is, I think it's maddiemorgan.design, with an IE, but I think hopefully you're going to link it below or something. But yeah, so that's my kind of main personal fashion account where you can see my collection. You can see Luca modeling some of my pieces as well. So that's where you can kind of see what I created through uni and my creative past. And feel free to message me on there. And then I've also got an Instagram of my brand called Salvage. So that's SALVEDGE. And that's where I'm making lots of upcycled pieces and creations and just trying to kind of reimagine fashion by using discarded textiles and continue that message and journey. So if you're interested in what I'm making currently, my brand in general, go and follow that. I also do commissions where I can design and make you your own salvage piece. Even if you have clothes that you want to get rid of, I can turn them into something beautiful as well. So if you're interested in that, just shoot me a message. And yeah, I think that's basically the main ones. You can find everything else through those. So yeah, that's me.
Perfect. Okay, I'll make sure I link everything in the
Thank
description
you.
box. I encourage everyone to look at your pieces because they're phenomenal. So I'm sure you deserve a lot of attention for your pieces and for what you're doing, for what you're achieving, and for your philosophy of how you're approaching life and fashion. I think it's beautiful. I would like this to be the norm. I would like this to be not just one corner of the fashion industry. I would like this to be the fashion industry, inspired, kind, wanting to, be good to other people, themselves, but also the world, and you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you so much. I love that. And this has been great. I've loved chatting to you today. So thanks for having me
Yeah,
on.
likewise.
So meta.
Next on So Meta.
This is Guy, and this is So Meta. I ended up getting a prison term of about 13 years. Maybe
13 years.
13 years. 13 years for a crime I never committed. I've forgiven anybody that had lied or said what they said. I understand. What do you define success? Well, I'm living it. I have it. When you have somebody that loves you and cares about you and cares about the things that you go through, that is success in life. And as much as I hated being in prison, I'm very, very thankful for it. It was my responsibility for what my brokers had done. I'm a performance coach. I'm also a business consultant. I was a defeated man. I mean, I was a wounded animal in every sense. People spit at me. People pushed me around physically. Sorry, I didn't know that, and he just ripped me apart again. And I'm dead. I went back to my cube and I'm dead.
So